What's up? I know this one took a little bit longer to get out than I expected, but in light of current events, some stuff happened, but we're back. As you might notice in the next video, probably the background of the videos might change a little bit, have a little bit of a different setup now, so we'll see how that goes. But I did get some little bit of feedback on the last video that I put out, which was cool. Somebody asked, what is my favorite campaign? So that's sort of open-ended. Is it one that I partook in? Is it one that I ended up running? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if it, I can't remember, honestly. I should have wrote it down or copied and pasted it somewhere or checked it before I started recording, but this is, like I said, this is like a podcast, so it's all ad-libbed. I don't write a script for any of this stuff. I don't try to, like, premeditate what I'm going to say or anything like that. So this is just off the cuff, what I'm thinking at the moment, what I'm sort of remembering at the moment. But it was a good question, and it actually got me to think, like, for running a campaign, I've only run maybe about a half dozen or so right now. The one that so let's start off first. Homebrew campaigns are both amazing and chaotic all at the same time. It's amazing because you get to create your own world, you get to create your big bad guy, you get to create this environment that goes back and forth with the players, I've found out. And I think that was one of the coolest things about running a homebrew campaign, was the back and forth with the players. Not so much as just like, oh, what are you gonna play? I'm gonna play a barbarian. Well, where are you gonna be from? I'm gonna be from this place, from this clan. And like, why are you leaving that clan? Because you have to have a good reason for everything. So like, yeah, that's fun. It's interesting to get that set up, but I think it's more fun through the campaign and having these characters develop throughout the campaign. And I think that is such a cool, like, interesting dynamic with the player and the DM, and how this character is not just coming to life, but developing as a character too. And I think that is a really cool thing. So yeah, I personally, I mean, it's gonna be a soft spot in my heart. Homebrew for my campaign stuff is the most fun, I would think, to run. But as far as like running campaigns out of a book, I've run the Light of Jiraxis Spelljammer 5e edition, or 5th edition 5e, whatever. I've run that. It was a work group. It started out with 3 people, and it ended with 5. It was really cool, really fun. There was, with the original 3, it was sort of interesting because the original 3 were all female, and I've never had that happen before. So it was me and 3 of my work friends, and they were all female, and it was really, really cool, and I really, really enjoyed that. It made for a more interesting play dynamic, I think, because that's never happened for me. I've never been or even seen like a group that was just all female, and I absolutely loved it. I thought it was so fun. And this isn't like a spoiler alert thing, but it is definitely something that changed the outcome of the entire campaign, and it was something that happened in the very first session, and it was the fighter. She took a piece, like she cracked a piece off of like this crystalline vine that ruptured through the crust of the world, and characters were investigating. It was 2 rogues and a fighter, so it was a really weird group dynamic already. But the fighter decided to chip a piece of this crystalline vine that broke through the crust of the world off, and she put it in her pocket, and she kept it for the entire campaign. And like I said, I'm not going to do spoilers or anything like that, but that little piece changed the last 2 chapters of the book, because what I like to do is I like to read the chapter prior to running it, or I like to read the next like couple pages or interactions before running it, of course, to get a feel for it. Sometimes I'll read it twice. I'll get everything set up. But when she took that, I didn't think anything of it. I was like, yeah, sure, you can scratch off a piece. You have a chip about maybe 4 inches long. It's like a big chunk of crystal. No big deal. That one event made me completely throw out the last chapter of the book and just wing the entire thing because of an interaction that I did not expect to happen at the very end. I'm not going to spoil anything. Again, I say no spoilers. The Light of Your Axis was not a very fun campaign to run. I think the players had a fun time because of how I ran it, but as a DM, I didn't really like how it was run. I didn't really like how it was written. It felt like a lot of go over here, talk to this person, then go over here and talk to that person, then go over here and talk to this person. And for me in my homebrew campaigns, I like to have like a 50-50 split with dialogue and combat. And for some reason, there were many sessions that were just full RP or dialogue with the characters and NPCs, just between the characters, sort of doing more character development, which that was fine. But the interaction between the NPCs and stuff, just, it felt so drawn out. There were cool aspects of the book, of the overall campaign, I will say that. But Light of Your Axis did not fall high on my list of like, yeah, this is a good one to run. What is high on my list of what's good and what's fun to run, as a DM, I'm very jealous of my players for this one. And actually, I've run the first, I think it was 6 or 7 chapters twice. Once originally with a group of 3 men, and then met some new neighbors. We had dinner together, brought up D&D, and they were like, oh, we played it once and it was pretty fun. And I was like, hey, if you want, I'll run you guys through something. You can see if you actually enjoy it, because I think they said they were at like some sort of family gathering and it was their nephew or something like that who was running it. But they didn't really get a lot of time to actually sit down and play and sort of invest in it. And I feel like D&D is one of those things where you need to give it like a good full session. And when I say a session, I'm talking like 3 to 4 hours. That's usually how long my sessions are. About 3 hours. I mean, kids and work and stuff like that. So it's sometimes limited. But as far as this campaign goes, this module, I'm planning on running it for my work group, the ladies group I like to call it, that I had for Light of Your Axis. It's Candlekeep Mysteries. It is such a fun campaign to run. And like I said, I am extremely jealous of the players involved in this campaign. It's set up where, and again, I'm not going to do spoilers, so if you guys want to go out, either A, purchase it and run it for other people, or B, have somebody else run it for you. Either way, super, super fun module to partake in, whether you're the DM or a player. Like I said, I love to be a player, and man, I'm jealous of the stuff my players do, because it sounds awesome. But Candlekeep Mysteries is set up where it's sort of like this small village, and you're from that village, like the group is from that village, so you already know each other. There's not much of a need for a backstory that's in the book. But the other really cool thing is, they're like, hey, there was this wizard, we sent him to Candlekeep because there's this thing going on in the village, like our crops are dying, we can't grow crops anymore, it's getting harder and harder each season, and so a group of you, however many it is, a group of you is selected to go to Candlekeep, and you gain entrance through submitting a piece of knowledge that they don't have current documentation on, but there was a note written saying, hey, you can get into Candlekeep because you're actually looking for somebody, and it's a wizard. And they're like, oh yeah, he came in like the day before or whatever. We haven't seen him ever since he came in. And they sort of, from what I remember for chapter 1, they sort of escort you to the area where he was, because I think he was reading up on like extraplanar sort of phenomena or something like that. But chapter 1 starts out really cool. You go into this weird sort of extraplanar dimension where it's a mansion, and somebody wanted to create the magnificent mansion spell, but like permanently in this room. And like the portal opens and you go in, and it's really cool. And the thing that I really like the most about this book, and this is amazing for a DM because it's not so much set for XP, it's set for milestone progression. And that's how I run my homebrew campaigns as well, and I'll talk a little bit more about that. But Candlekeep Mysteries is set up for each chapter is a level. There's one exception. I think it's around chapter 4 or 5. It doesn't level you up, but I think those chapters are relatively short anyway. So you can very easily either run one or the other, or run both of them. I don't think it really matters, but it is very cool. I love the dynamic of how it's set up, and I love it so much that I actually bought another campaign to run, another module to run. That's the keys from the Golden Vault, or keys to the Golden Vault. But it sounds like a super cool heist D&D campaign. So I'm sort of really stoked to run that. I'm gonna offer the book to one of the players and just be like, hey, would you run this so I can partake in this? Because it looks like it's set up the exact same. Each chapter is like a heist of some type, and then each chapter is a level. So it's set up with the exact sort of XP that I like to do, which is milestone XP, where it's like, hey, here's a quest, go do that, and then you get to level up. So coming back to the homebrew stuff that I've run before, the first campaign took, I think it was about 3 years total, and I did, in the very beginning, I did XP. And I did XP because that's what I knew from playing 2nd edition with my older brother and stuff like that. I knew XP base at the end of each session, you get XP, and they played with bonus XP, where it was like if something happened, the DM would write it down and like give you bonus XP at the end of the session. So it's like if you did something really funny, if you did something really smart, sometimes if you did something really stupid, it was bonus XP so that you could level up faster. And I remember in 2nd edition, or at least it seemed like it took forever to level up for some reason. But it was a cool thing. So I did that in the very, very beginning when I was DMing. And it was cool because I was like, all right, you guys are like, here's more XP and here's more XP. And it was like a fun thing at the end of each session to figure out and reward the players and stuff and give the bonus XP out. But the problem I ran into was I had a world built and I had an adventure built where they would be certain levels at certain points of those adventures. And I saw that it could easily get out of hand if they went to the left instead of to the right like I planned. Then I have to give them XP for going that way. But then I have to level up everything that was in my campaign that I had initially planned. So that was the hard part. So that's when I figured that part out, and I switched over to the milestone XP. And the milestone XP, many people are like, oh, well, what if they don't know what to go do? Well, in my campaigns, I make it blatantly obvious. And sometimes they're really dumb. Perfect example. In my first homebrew campaign, they had to gather all these materials and go to this forge deep in a mountain and form these sort of spikes that had arcane energy and stuff like that, like integrated in with them. They had to go visit an artificer after they forged them. It was a really cool, like, go get all the materials, make the thing, go make it better, and then go beat the big bad guy. I felt like it was really cool. My players enjoyed it too. But the funny thing is, and like I said, sometimes they don't do what you expect. We were in the middle of the combat in the forge, and I actually legitimately killed one of the characters. It was just a series of rolls, and it was a totem barbarian that I killed, and those are the toughest ones to kill, and I did it. It's sort of a bragging right to me, but I still feel bad about it, and I feel like he sort of got a little revenge on me in this other homebrew campaign that him and I are players in, and I'll share that with you. Hence the reason why I'm painting this mini, actually. This mini is to replace the other character that I was playing in that campaign because this player killed it. And I will share the story of that because that's sort of ridiculous too. But they were in this forge and they had to make these spikes. They had to make 3 of them. So when they got to the big bad guy, they could plant 2 of them, and then plant the 3rd, make a triangle to sort of contain him and drain him of energy. It was sort of like you got to think about how you're going to go about this scenario. And I really like that idea. I really like that concept. So they were in the forge. There was combat in there. There were some drow. There were some driders. There was acolytes, of course. There's always acolytes. There's always evil acolytes. You got to have those. They were pretty much cannon fodder. It was fine. I was just making them cast like hold person, just seeing how much I could mess with them. And the wild magic sorcerer was downed, so the barbarian ran in to save him and ended up taking those killing blows, and that's how the barbarian died. And this was close to the end of that session that we were gonna wrap anyway. I think we may have wrapped about a half hour or so early because I didn't know what to do. We killed the barbarian tank. I didn't know how to react to that, and I still sort of feel bad to this day about it. But I mean, it's D&D. Shit happens, right? So after that session ends, come back to the next session. We come up with a new character for the barbarian player. He plays a Rune Knight fighter, and Rune Knight fighters are awesome. That's the character that he killed in this homebrew campaign that I'm painting the mini to replace. But they were in this forge. All the bad guys are dead. They have all the materials they need to make these spikes. And they're like, all right, well, we're going to investigate. Okay, cool. Give me investigation rolls. Give me some perception checks. All that fun stuff. And because the fight got so intense, I pulled back some of the things that I wasn't going to use. So I was like, all right, you guys find some footprints and some tracks. And they're leading into this like crack in the wall in the back part of the forge. Thinking nothing of it, because I was like, it's a small crack. It looks like people had to wiggle through it. Thinking nothing of it, we're gonna go down the pit. And I looked at them and I said, what? They were like, yeah, we're gonna go through the crack, and what do we see? I was like, all right, well, it's a deep drop. It's like hundreds of feet. You cast light on a stone, you drop it, it disappears before you hear it hit anything. We're talking super deep. And they decided to just go forward with this and venture forward and try to find out where this leads to. They had all the stuff to make the spikes. It was literally right behind them. All they had to do was turn around and boom, they could have the spikes, they could go to the artificer, they could go to the big bad guy. That was it. No, we had to take 2 sessions and I had to figure out what was down that pit because I didn't have anything planned. The crack in the wall wasn't even there when the fight started. That was me trying to be nice, DM, and say, hey, there was a bunch of other shit in this room that was really gonna mess you up, and it left because the DM realized how to pull a punch. So we go down the hole, and I was like, you know what? All right, we're gonna go down the hole. So 2 sessions of ad-libbing later, they get to the bottom of the hole. It's a huge cavern, and there are some drow down there. And I was like, you know what? I'm just gonna make this the gateway to Menzoberranzan, which is the drow city. It's their capital. I was like, if you guys wanted to follow through with this, like you had drow up there, you had acolytes, you had driders. If you wanted any other sort of sign, here it is. This is the gates to Menzoberranzan. So they decided to not go down that tunnel, and they went out the other tunnel, which led out through to the side of the mountain. Then they had to climb back up the mountain, get into the forge, and finally do the things. But, like I said, as far as favorite campaigns to run, Candlekeep from a book if you can do a homebrew, man, homebrews are really fun. Like, the evolution of a world along with the evolution of a character is just so fun to synergize with a player. So yeah, I would say Candlekeep Mysteries. If I'm gonna run a book, I will gladly run Candlekeep Mysteries, because that is just the way they set it up is cool. The mysteries they have for each chapter are fun. There's role playing involved. There's combat. And depending on the players you get, there's twists and turns that you don't expect and you can't plan for. So those are always fun as well. But Candlekeep Mystery, if I'm running a book. If I run Keys of the Golden Vault, or Keys for the Golden Vault, or whatever it's called, I'll definitely make another video podcast about that, because that seems like that's going to be super fun to run after I'm done running Candlekeep for my friends. So the Rune Knight fighter that I was playing was a shark. It was a giant shark, man. He talked like this. He had the Batman voice. So he was a super fun character to play. He was a dex build. He had super amazing armor. He was dual-wielding rapiers. Then he switched out to dual-wielding poison scimitars that did a d6 slashing. And then it was a 4d6 of poison damage. Like, he was just a DPS machine. And we were in the middle of a desert for this homebrew campaign, and the warlock has an entire pantheon for essentially his like deities that he sort of worships, and his patrons that he has set up. So we got to this part. It was going to be super tough. It was going to be a huge challenge. There were like these were-jackal things because it was the middle of the desert, and it was really cool. It was going to be an awesome fight. I was like, I don't know if we're going to survive. DM might get his TPK right here, right now. But he prayed to one of his pantheons or whatever, and his patron came down and was like, yo, I'll clear a path for you, but it's going to cost you. And he was like, okay, done. Doesn't matter, we'll pay you. And the patron was like, you need to choose a soul that I take with me right now. And everybody at the table was just like, oh, that's not good. Because there is him, there's the buddy of his character that he wrote a backstory with, there's our barbarian in that campaign who has a belt of storm giant strength, so he has a strength of 29. There's our rogue, who sadly in real life moved away from us but still plays remote, so we have a hybrid session with him. And then there's me. I'll give you a second to think of who he killed. He killed the huge DPS. No, and it's funny because I told him, I was like, dude, if my character's name was Karkara Dinkar Carius. He was a really almost 8 foot tall shark man, but he was very dexy and stealthy, and I loved it. He was ridiculous. So Kar is dead, and instead we have this character coming into play. This character is and we were level 8, so I was able to pick a level 8 character. And as soon as I saw the Bard College of Tragedy come out, and the person who killed Kar does not roll well. He rolls a lot of 1s. So the College of Tragedy thing of like, hey, if somebody rolls a 1, you can use your reaction to get Bardic Inspiration back. I was like, you know what? I want to use that because he's really bad at rolling dice. Whether it's an attack, a skill, or a save, he's just terrible at rolling. So it's a level 3 College of Tragedy, level 5 Oath of the Watcher's Paladin. It's going to be a dex build, rapier, and you're going to see here soon that she is going to get a flame tongue rapier. I'm going to do a little bit of fire effects on it. It's going to be pretty nice looking. I thought about how to do the flame effects, and I don't like how I did them. I might redo it. I'm not sure. It just sort of depends. So what I found out, and I did this with one of my other minis, and you can go on my channel. It should be in the shorts. It's Lady of the Flame, and I painted her white, and then I'm using the speed paints from Army Painter to actually go in and put the yellow on, then put a little bit of orange on top, then put a little bit of red on top of that. And it builds up really nice, and it has this really organic flame consistency to it where everything sort of blends really nice with itself. And it's sort of like a idiot's guide to flame weapons in a way, but it turned out really good. So I'm really stoked to play this character. And the sad thing is, we always joked about, we always have a Sophie's choice to make. When this happened, I looked at my buddy and I told him, I was like, this is the real Sophie's choice. So, because of that, I am naming this character SophieRogha. And Rogha is French. I looked it up. It's French for choice. So her name is literally Sophie Choice. She's a Shatterkai, so she's from the Shadowfell, which is actually where our characters were planning on going when Carr died. So I felt it's very, you know, synergistic with the story of where we're going. But she also is going to be worshiping a deity that Warlock doesn't like too much. So there she is in all her glory. Don't forget to comment, like, and subscribe. Thank you. Catch you on the next one.